Hello again, it's Baz at GotAUkulele and another video that I was asked to put up for absolute beginners who are thinking about buying their first instrument and what should they look for when they go into a store. Now, first off, I appreciate that a lot of people are forced to buy online, and that can be a bit of a minefield. If you're buying online, stick to a reputable dealer. Don't go for the cheapest. Certainly try to avoid going to Amazon, because they just come straight out of the factory with nobody having checked them over or set them up. Far better though, go to a ukulele store, a music store that's got a bit of a range, and have a play of as many as you can to get a feel for how the different instruments sound. Looks are of course important. Aesthetics are important to anybody, but bear in mind that looks do not necessarily make the ukulele play or sound any better. This is a tool for making music. And what's important is how it sounds and how it plays. And I personally think looks should come third. Now, with cheaper end ukes, if you're buying your first uke, you're probably going to be buying a laminate uke. The looks are just a laminate outer. This is a laminate ukulele, incidentally, and that wood grain is not real wood, it's actually plywood, but that's an outer veneer. So it doesn't affect the sound in any way, it just changes the way the ukulele looks. So this could be in a striped zebra wood as opposed to this mahogany, but it wouldn't actually really sound any different. So just bear that in mind, that you really want to be trusting your ears more than you are trusting your eyes, I would say. So, pick the ukulele up. Does it feel solid? Is it in one piece? Are there any loose rattles or anything that just doesn't feel quite right? This is a good one. The top joins to the sides around here. This has got some bindings, some of them don't, but just check that there's no gaps. This should be a neat finish like this one is. Same with the back to the side. You may get a wooden joint here as well. Just check that it's not full of filler and it's too wide. And the neck, where it joins to the body, this should be flush. There shouldn't be any air gaps in here whatsoever. Then take a look at the top of the instrument. It should be completely flat on both sides, nice and uniform. It shouldn't be bulging in any way. Signs of a problem with the uke build would be a sinking top here around the bridge, which is a result of loose bracing or just a bad build. I would reject it for that reason. The backs are often slightly curved like this one is, but that curve should be even. In other words, you shouldn't have a bulge here and nothing here. So check that out as well, and just generally just look over the instruments for splits in wood, cracks or anything like that, because it is likely to get worse. The next thing you want to check on any instrument you buy is the setup of the saddle. Now this can be easily adjusted, and if you found the saddle was too high, I've seen no problem with going to the dealer in that shop and saying, do you want to just take the saddle down for me a little bit? And if they refuse to do that, I want to charge you, I would go to a different store. How do you check that saddle height? Well, a good rule of thumb is to go to the 12th fret, and the height of the individual strings above the crown of the 12th fret should be no more than about 1/8 of an inch. It's a lot of personal preference in action, but if it's much higher than that, you are going to have tuning issues, and it's going to be hard to play because you're having to push these strings down a fair old distance, and that affects the whole instrument as well. So about 1/8 of an inch tops above the 12th fret, and you are good to go with the saddle. The next thing to check as we move up the neck, have a feel here. You shouldn't really be able to feel the fret edges. They should be nice and smooth and filed off. If they are hurting your fingers or obviously sharp, I would reject the instrument. Absolutely. This is the nut, very important feature on the ukulele, and if that is too high, you are going to get issues with strings going sharp, sharper than they should be, when they're fretted in these lower frets. If the nut is too low, your strings will buzz when you strum the ukulele. So the very good way to test that is you hold down each of the strings, because you need to check all 4 slots. Each of the strings, hold them down at the 3rd fret there. This string should now just kiss the top of the 1st fret here. If there's a lot of daylight, your nut is too high. If it's pushing and pressing down on this 1st fret too firmly, or heaven forbid, pushing down on the next one, your nut slots are too low. Either way, that is not an easy fix for a beginner. I would just simply reject the ukulele and get a different one. The force for that string touching that top fret, I mean, there can be a tiny bit of light. A good test is, can it hold a piece of paper and hold it like that and shake, and will it hold? That's perfect. Beyond the neck, we move up to the headstock. You're either going to see geared tuners that stick out of the back, and they can tighten up and loosen with a screwdriver. They're difficult for a lot of beginners to get used to, and most often they'll go for these geared tuners. Gears have a turn. They should be firm but easy to turn. And give them a few revolutions as well. Don't go too tight with the strings, you'll snap them. Just loosen them off. There shouldn't be any grinding at any point as those gears go around. If you've got no problems there, you're good to go. Check the nuts that are holding them onto the faceplate are tight. Sometimes I've seen ukuleles and you just sort of give them a nudge with your finger and these bolts are loose. Again, that's easily fixed by the dealer, but it's not right. And there we are, really. Oh, final tip. Let's just check that neck properly. Take the neck and sight down it from the headstock. In other words, sight down it from the headstock. It should be pretty much flat. A slight bit of back bow is acceptable, but only slight. This is unacceptable. And certainly if it's twisting either way, you want to reject the uke. None of those things are particularly fixable, and it's a bad instrument. Have a look inside the uke as well. The sign of a good ukulele is often a tidy inside. So if you've got glue spots and paint and all sorts of bits of wood shavings still inside there, I would question how well the instrument was put together. You'll see the braces in here which are giving it the strength. Just have a look at those, possibly reach in and have a feel. They shouldn't be loose, they should be firmly glued down. If they're loose, they will boast to start with, and eventually they'll come away. And if you lose that strength, this is where you start to see the top of the body effectively breaking, it dipping into itself because of the tension of these strings. If you're buying an electro, one important tip on electros: if you have a budget of £100 to spend on a ukulele, and then you go to pick up your £100 acoustic ukulele and your head is turned at the counter by an electroacoustic ukulele that also costs £100, that ukulele will not be as good as the £100 acoustic ukulele, for the simple reason that for the same price you're having to pay for the pickup. If you want to buy a pickup, budget more money on top, not the same amount of money. If you're buying an electro, ask the shop to plug it in for you. Have a go of it through an amplifier. Do all of the strings sound of equal volume across them? This is the biggest issue with a lot of ukulele pickups, is that some strings are louder than the others. If that's the case, I would reject it. Also check for body noise or buzz or hum. I'm afraid cheaper end electro ukuleles leave a lot to be desired compared to acoustics, so I personally wouldn't suggest buying one unless you're putting a bit more money down, to be perfectly honest. You bear in mind that a good passive under saddle pickup will cost you getting on for £100. Therefore, a £100 electro ukulele is not going to have a particularly good pickup in it, and you will notice that as soon as you plug it into anything with a bit of volume, when the problems will really start to show. But otherwise, trust your judgment. Remember what I said about using your ears more than your eyes. If you can find a uke that sounds good to you, that plays good to you, that doesn't have any of the flaws we've talked about, and looks good, then you are onto a winner. But sadly, at the cheaper end of the market for ukuleles, the quality can be mixed. So go carefully, take advice, take somebody with you, and if you're not happy with any of them in the shop, leave the shop and try somewhere else. I hope that's been helpful, and good luck with picking your first uke.